someone else please chant? Mataji's. Mukhena, by a gesture of the face, Loka Arti Hara, vanquisher of the distress of the devotees, Smitena, by smiling, Parispurat, dazzling, Kundala, earrings, Manditena, decorated with, Shonayatena, acknowledging, Adhara, of his lips, Bimba, reflection, Basa, rays, Pratyarhayantam, reciprocating, Sunasena, by his pleasing nose, Subhra, and pleasing eyebrows. Translation. He also acknowledged the service of the devotees and vanquished their distress by his beautiful smile. The reflection of his face, decorated with earrings, was so pleasing that it dazzled with the rays from his lips and the beauty of his nose and eyebrows. Okay. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Devotional service to the Lord is very much obliging to him. There are many transcendentalists in different fields of spiritual activities, but devotional service to the Lord is unique. Devotees do not ask anything from the Lord in exchange for their service. Even the most desirable liberation is refused by devotees, although offered by the Lord. Thus, the Lord becomes a kind of debtor to the devotees, and he can only try to repay the devotee's service with his ever-enchanting smile. The devotees are ever satisfied by the smiling face of the Lord, and they become enlivened. And by seeing the devotees so enlivened, the Lord himself is further satisfied. So there is continuous transcendental competition between the Lord and his devotees by such reciprocation of service and acknowledgement. Mukena lokarti harasmitena, parispurat kundala manditena, shonayatenadara bimba basa, pratyarhayantam sunasena subhra. He also acknowledged the service of the devotees and vanquished their distress by his beautiful smile. The reflection of his face, decorated with earrings, was so pleasing because it dazzled with the rays from his lips and the beauty of his nose and eyebrows. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadesh Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vanchakapacharubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha Patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. So this is Kapila. Is it Kapila? Oh, it's Vidura. It's Maitreya. It's Maitreya. It's Maitreya instructing Vidura, describing the realization of Lord Brahma. And it's such a beautiful description. Of course, it's really something most exceptional and very profound. The first point, which is like the basis of what is being described in the verse. The verse, of course, is describing the beauty of the Lord. The beauty of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada, but Srila Prabhupada begins the purport by pointing out that devotional service is very obliging to the Lord. The Lord feels obliged. The Lord feels a great need to reciprocate with the service of the Lord, with the service performed by the devotees. The Lord feels that it's the devotional service of the devotees is just so special and so wonderful that he feels perplexed. How am I going to reciprocate properly, suitably, in sufficient ways so that it can be said that this was a proper reciprocation, as opposed to just some little something done, but it's not got it's not really a nice reflection of the service offered by the devotees. So the point there is, at least the first point is that the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is a person. And he has all the personal characteristics that we're familiar with as displayed by people. But, of course, he displays all those different characteristics in quantitatively much greater ways, like his beauty. I'm sure you've heard many times, I know we've mentioned many times, that the Lord is so extremely beautiful that when he was on this planet 5,000 years ago, he would move around in public sometimes. Sometimes people would see him and be so affected by his beauty that they would faint. And even though we, of course, we've all seen some beautiful people, but none of them affected us to the point where we fainted. Or I would say even came anywhere near fainting, because even though there's some beauty there, but the Lord has more, a lot more. Actually, the Lord has all beauty. The way you could put it, possibly, is that if somehow you were able to extract the beauty from that everyone, and not just every person, but every animal, every plant, like all the flowers, for example, and all the fish, maybe some fish are beautiful, and so on and so forth, and all the different sort of beautiful natural scenes. If somehow you were able to extract all of it, just all of it, and place it all in one person, plus add some more, this is the beauty of Krishna. It's the beauty of Krishna. So we can't even say that Krishna is twice as beautiful as any one of us here, or even 10 times, or 100, or 1,000,000 times even. It's just too incalculably much greater than any of us or all of us. So then, some people see that, and well, as we said, some people faint. But even that, even fainting, is not really that much of a sort of an expression of how wonderful this is. Perhaps it's the best that can be done if you just spontaneously faint, because it's too much of an overload of the senses. But even fainting as a type of response, a response of being impressed, being astonished, feeling that, oh, such beauty I've not seen before. Even fainting is not really a sufficient type of response or reaction to that beauty, but perhaps it's all that some people can do. Yeah. But the thing is, the first point is that Krishna is a person like us. In one sense, it can be said, and it is said, that to some degree or in certain important respects, if you want to understand Krishna, just look at yourself. Yeah. It's not completely wrong to say that. In fact, it's at least it's a start. If you want to understand Krishna, look at yourself. Of course, you have to be a little careful, because when we look at ourselves, at least if we look carefully enough and attentively enough and perceptively enough, then we will see that even though we certainly do have some attributes which we share with the Lord, like we're persons, we have emotions, we have senses, we have intelligence, we are prone to have relationships and all sorts of different things like that. We have activities. But unfortunately, there are some qualities or features of our characters and our beings which are perverted. And really they're not, it would not be fair to just say that, well, Krishna, I get envious sometimes I get really envious. And so I can understand Krishna must sometimes get really envious. Sometimes I cheat, and so Krishna sometimes must cheat. Actually, it's true. Krishna does cheat, and there's a nice description in Nectar of Devotion of Krishna as Dhira Lalita and Dhira, what is it? Dhira Datta. And there's a couple of other Dhira somethings, I think. And in one of those, I forget exactly which one, but it's specifically stated that Krishna said to Kamsa, or sort of, I don't know if Kamsa was right there, but he sort of was addressing Kamsa, that you, Kamsa, you'd better be careful, because there is a black snake named Krishna, and this black snake is after you, and he's going to get you. Oh, and it's not going to be nice for you. So it's a type of envious expression, but it's transcendental. We sometimes have made expressions of envy or had feelings of envy, but not in that sort of nasty and purely aggressive or simply aggressive and belligerent way. So Krishna, he has these qualities, but for example, when Krishna was envious of Kamsa, as we described, and then eventually he killed Kamsa, and he dragged Kamsa's body around the arena to show it off to all the people who were assembled there. And he was showing off, look, see what happened to this demon. But actually it was good for Kamsa. Kamsa became highly purified and benefited by being the sort of recipient of Krishna's envy. But people who become recipients of our envy, there's no benefit for them. It's just another part of the horribleness, the absolute horribleness of material existence. And, even that was relatively mild compared to what some people do to other people when they become really envious of them. We would not repeat that. We would not talk about that. but sometimes in their envy, when their envy just overflows and just reaches such a pinnacle of horribleness, sometimes people do things to other people, which anyway, like we said, we will not talk about them. And it's not good for the other person, and it's not good for the person who does it, and it's just like a very, very nasty part of material existence. Yeah. So, and you know, sometimes humans do things like that to other humans. And the humans are meant to be the top 5% of all living entities in the material world. The best, with the best positions in the modes, the most goodness. Okay, so the Lord, even if the Lord does express something which you might, it may actually be a form of envy, transcendental envy, but for him it's blissful, and for even the recipient, like in the case of Kamsa, it was highly beneficial. So the Lord is such a wonderful person. And even though he's such an important person, but he doesn't feel like he's important. Well, sometimes he does, but sometimes he is very humble. And this is one such type of situation that the Lord sees, here is such and such devotee serving me. And the Lord feels that this devotee is serving me so nicely that even though I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Supreme Controller of everything and the Supreme Proprietor, and therefore I could give this person as a reciprocation, I could give them so much. But even if I did that, it wouldn't be sufficient to really express my feelings and just what this devotee is worthy of. This is a part of the nature of the Lord. In other words, the Lord excuse me, is not like some, as happens sometimes with big authority figures in the material world. The Lord does not develop, as they say sometimes, a big head. Like, see how important I am. This happens to people. This happens to people if they become, not always, but it happens. If they become big politicians, if they become big popular personalities, like entertainers and people of that sort, it goes to their heads. And they start, and they show it. They show it when they interact with people who, in those terms, are on much lower levels. Of course, we see it in a most grotesque and just shocking way in the way human beings treat animals. What could be a greater expression of thinking that another living being is just of zero importance and deserves absolutely no nice treatment, than just heartlessly killing them just so you can have one meal. It's shocking. It's without even saying thank you. Now, of course, there are all sorts of, in between a high level of consciousness like the Lord's consciousness and that level of human abuse of human consciousness, there are all other types of phenomena of that sort, like racism. Our race is the best. This other race is just, too useless. We just don't need to take them seriously. Or sexism, that women are good for certain things, like having babies and cooking and looking after the house, but vote in an election. How could a woman do that? They just don't have what is required. You don't mind me saying such things, do you? Anyway, this is sexism. And what about in the phenomenon of abortion? That a child is of so little consequence that if having the child means we will have to, sell a car because it's expensive to keep children, so we'll have to sell a car and maybe get a smaller house or something like that if we give birth to this child. So the child is of so little consequence that if it seems like we may have to do these things, better to kill the child. Not even just have the child and get someone else to adopt the child, but just kill the child. Phew. This is just, it's another dimension. It's another dimension of degraded consciousness in this material world. So, racism, sexism, I know abortionism, can you call it that? I don't know what you'd call it really, but, and what was the other one? Speciesism. Speciesism. That our species is so much better that all the other species are useless. And the only thing they're useful for is killing them and eating them. And we may be sitting here thinking, yes, speciesism, eating the animals, it's very bad, and it shows what a degraded consciousness many humans have, but we are eating vegetables. We're eating vegetables. It's just another form of speciesism, that these vegetables, they're so useless that the only thing they're good for is being eaten. Srila Prabhupada, of course, we, as devotees, we offer the vegetables and whatever else that are in our sort of what the types of things we eat. We offer them to Krishna. So that's really very different from just being a vegetarian. But some of you may be aware that a few times, actually, I did a little research a little while ago, just a few weeks ago, but one important time was here in Durban in the City Hall, when one vegetarian Hindu gentleman, I think he was one of the Narayan Singhs from Stanger, and he was like a vegetarian campaigner. Yeah. He asked Prabhupada in the question time in front of so many people in the Durban City Hall, he asked Prabhupada along the lines that, can you please explain, something like that, the benefits of vegetarianism, or how it's better than meat eating? It was along those lines. And obviously expecting Prabhupada to just go, yes, vegetarianism, very good, and go into a whole thing about that. But Prabhupada gave, what an answer. Prabhupada said, actually, there's not really any difference between being vegetarian and non-vegetarian. That's what Prabhupada said, basically. And like I said, we were doing some research because some devotees were suggesting that it's fine for devotees if somehow you can't offer the food, don't ask me how, but anyway, somehow you weren't able to do an offering, you know. I don't know what could be such a situation where it would just become not possible to even do a very simple offering, but, you know, if you can't, then it's okay just to distribute food to people. So yeah, Prabhupada made that point on a few occasions. We were doing our research and we found it here and there. But for us, notably here in Durban, that Prabhupada said that there's not really any difference. It's certainly not like vegetarianism is, you know, it's not as good as eating prasadam, but, you know, it's quite good, whereas meat eating is very bad. Prabhupada just said there's really not much difference. And the point is, because you're not offering it to the Lord. But as soon as you offer it to the Lord, oh, what a difference. What a massive difference. For you, as the, you know, you could say consumer, but let us say respecter of the prasad. Let's hope we have or can cultivate that type of mood. Yeah. There's so much benefit for the person who eats the prasadam, and there's great benefit for the vegetables and different things which are offered and then consumed by the devotees. It's just the difference. Yeah, the difference is very great. Very, very great. Yes, so anyway, so we were saying though, that the Lord is such a person that he appreciates and feels obliged for the service rendered to him by the devotees. We've mentioned many times before, and it's just a very nice thing, that Srila Jiva Goswami says in one of his literatures that the Lord, even though the Lord is so great, he is as great as an unlimited ocean, but still, even though he's as great as an unlimited ocean, still, he never forgets even the smallest drop of service. He never forgets it. Even the smallest little drop of service. And this is really a very nice expression of this point here. That the Lord, even though he's unlimited and he knows he's unlimited, He's very clear on the fact that he's unlimited. But still, when devotees serve him, not every devotee, but some very, very high devotees, very elevated, very pure, selfless devotees, the Lord genuinely feels, when they have rendered some service to him, that despite me being unlimited and despite me being what I am, I feel genuinely incapable of reciprocating in ways which this person deserves. The service of this person necessitates that I must reciprocate in just certain ways, but I'm not capable. And this is, you could say it's a contradiction in Krishna consciousness. The Lord is unlimited. Surely he can reciprocate unlimitedly. But despite that, he feels he can't reciprocate sufficiently, even though he knows how much he can reciprocate, and it's unlimited. So what can you say? The Supreme Personality of Godhead is really a person, and he's not one of these, as we were saying, big authority figures who feels that, in ancient Rome, they had the plebs or plebeians and the patricians. You heard about them? You studied Latin in school? Anyway, the plebs or plebeians and the patricians. It's a little like, well, it's very like in Gujarati society, the mochi, the patidas and the mochis. Perhaps we shouldn't have said that. But no, it's actually, it's like that. The plebs were just the ordinary people. And the patricians were the wealthy classes. And the patricians felt the plebs, they're disposable. Just like in Russia, some of you have been there, and some of you have been to St. Petersburg, which, is, you could say, in a certain sense, a very beautiful city. It's got all these buildings from a few hundred years ago, whenever it was. And, they're very artistically done. And it's got what was the main palace of the Tsar, the emperor. And it's really quite a palace. But it was a swamp. It was a big swamp at the end of the Baltic Sea, where it just slowly comes up out of the sea, and there's this whole big swampy area, and the Tsar, one of the Tsars, had it converted into this beautiful city by building in the swamp, and when they did it, it took a long time, and they had this labor force of thousands, and just many thousands of, we would say, peasants. Yeah. The landless, dependent, totally poverty-stricken people. And in building St. Petersburg, thousands of them died because of the swamp. You sink into the swamp and things like that. And just being beaten, come on, work, and working in the middle of winter when it's minus 30 degrees, but you must go out and work all day with sort of, less clothing on than you have. And the whole day from, like 5 in the morning till 8 at night. And thousands of them died. It was just unbelievable. To build the city for the Tsar. And they knew it. They knew these people will die, and they are dying, but they didn't care, because it's for the Tsar. Good. So, just so heartless. So heartless. But the Lord is not like that. And the Tsar at that time, he thought it was fine. No problem. They're expendable. They're expendable. They're throwaway people. Throwaway people. And so sometimes, I'll try and wake you up. Sometimes they would devise a new type of weapon. So they just call some sort of gun, and they just call some peasant, just stand here, bang. Yeah, you see how it works. It's a good gun. And oh yeah, oh yes. They would just do things, testing guillotines, particularly in France. Is our guillotine working properly? Hey, you peasant, come here. And that's what they do. Test the guillotine out on the peasant, because they're just nobodies. Just nobodies. So this is what happens when the conditioned soul, who has this underlying desire to become like God and enjoy like God and be powerful like God and just be great like God. This is what happens when this sort of desire somehow gets fueled to the maximum degree. Then they just feel they can abuse anyone and anything, and it's no problem at all. Not what to speak of not being a problem. It's good. It's good. The person is so useless that if I can test a new gun on him, it's the best use for that person. You follow? It's when the demoniac consciousness goes to an extreme. Normally as we see it in day-to-day life, it's not that extreme, but it can be. Maybe not in this lifetime, maybe some other lifetime, it will for that person who otherwise now seems, not too unpleasant. So anyway, the Lord, you probably know the place in the 10th canto where the Supreme Personality of Godhead is approached by the gopis, and they accuse him of not reciprocating with them. That we love you, we'll do anything for you, but what do? You disappear in the middle of the rasa dance. Even though we gave up everything for you, you suddenly just abandon us. So they're actually criticizing him in different ways. It's an interesting discussion. But at the end, the Lord says, actually, it's not like that. Actually, I do appreciate, and the reason I disappeared was to stimulate you so your love would increase. And then the Lord says finally that actually I have reached the point where your love for me is so great that even though I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I genuinely feel I don't have the capacity to reciprocate. So you will have to be satisfied just with your service to me. That's all. So devotional service is very obliging to the Lord. We are not on that level like the gopis at all. We are just in a totally different type of position, but at least we're somewhere in devotional service, doing something at least, even though it's not a lot, and our mood at best may not be very selfless, and even perhaps sometimes we have some material desires, means we don't want to serve Krishna. We're actually thinking about doing something else for our own pleasure. So even though we may be something like that, more or less, but still, as Srila Jiva Goswami said, the Lord is such a person, his capacity to appreciate, to feel gratefulness, gratitude, is such that even someone does little drop of service, he never forgets it. He never forgets it. It's beyond our capacity to really clearly understand. It's well beyond. So what the Lord does according to this verse is the Lord simply smiles. That's all. He just smiles. And the devotee feels that, that's just, I never expected such a wonderful reciprocation. I never expected something like that. And so as Prabhupada explains, that the devotee seeing that smile of the Lord and feeling that the Lord has feelings for me, and the Lord appreciates me, and therefore he gave me that most incredible smile, the devotee becomes further inspired. The devotee doesn't think, well, all he gave me was a smile, but I spent 1,000 rands on, whatever I did for him. I spent 2 hours cooking for him, and all he did was smile for a couple of seconds. Yeah. But the devotee, at least this sort of devotee, feels that what a reciprocation, it's unbelievable. And the devotee becomes then more enlivened to serve better. And when Krishna sees that the devotee is now serving even better, then Krishna smiles even more. Even more. And the devotee becomes more enlivened. Look at this, an even better smile. And so Prabhupada says here at the end of the purport, in this way there's a continuous transcendental competition between the Lord and his devotees. And it's described nicely in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela chapter 4, that the gopis, who of course are the topmost devotees, they dress and decorate themselves very, very beautifully with the idea of pleasing Krishna. And when Krishna sees them, and he knows that all this dressing, decoration, and so on is just an expression of their love, then he becomes pleased and smiles or whatever, and the gopis become inspired, seeing that, he appreciates, they become more beautiful, Krishna becomes more pleased, the gopis see that and they become more enlivened and therefore more beautiful, and Krishna sees that and becomes even more satisfied, and they see that and become even more inspired. And Chaitanya Charitamrita says, there is no end to this. It's not that they reach a certain point after, half an hour. You're pleased, I become more inspired. You're more pleased, I become more inspired. You're more pleased, I become even more inspired. And you go on for half an hour like that, you could get up to quite a high level. But it actually never ends. It literally never ends. Not that they reach a point of saying, okay, that's enough. You don't need to smile more. So, yes. So like this, the devotee becomes a kind of debtor, or feels that he's a debtor to the devotee. And in this way, there's this increase of reciprocations of different sorts. In this case, expressed through the smile. Hare Krishna. Any comment or question? Madhavi Prabhu?
I just remember that you mentioned about not being able to offer a prasad, and it's still beneficial.
Okay.
I remember we were very young devotees, and we would have to go and we were traveling, and we would have to go and buy some things for our little prasad. So the bhakta would go in and get some cream cheese and some dates and some peanuts or something, come back, and then someone says, no, we need this and that. And the other brew would go back and come back and says, don't worry, I'll offer the whole shop.
Yeah. I'll offer the whole shop. And
Not such a good example.
Yeah, it's interesting. But I was told that Srila Prabhupada was told about that and said not to do it, not to try to do it. I was also told of devotees going up to the city water reservoir and offering the whole water reservoir. I don't know if Prabhupada commented on that, but it's just, it's nice. A nice sort of sentiment, but it's not real. Do you remember Sakshi Gopal in London? Whenever he'd have a shower, he would say a few mantras to offer the water coming out of the shower. Such are the ideas of the devotees sometimes. I mean, it's a nice sentiment. Srila Prabhupada ki. Hare Krishna.